any notes about the situation that they may or may not seem relevant at the time, but just things that were out of the ordinary, observations that you had. Somebody kept coming in and out of the room, like everything seemed to be in a hurry, and there was one person pacing in and out of the room. I mean, even if you took a Post-it note, wrote it down in your car, and just stuck it in the journal, it may mean nothing. But when that person comes back, because correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't come back in 2018, it was years later. So when these type of investigations happen, they're not happening the week after, they're happening years after. So it's really whatever's gonna jog your memory.
Is that with the continuing rapid acceleration of technology, and particularly artificial intelligence, we're seeing the potential for fraud at massive scale. In the mortgage finance industry, we've also seen a dramatic increase in what they call seller impersonation fraud. And the title industry has seen a huge spike. In 2023, 28% of title companies nationwide said they experienced at least an attempt of seller impersonation fraud, right, on real property. It's a growing problem. It's pretty big.
Wow, it's scary.
And think about how much of the transaction is not done face-to-face. So, specifically with mortgages and things, let's go back. Who's the person knocking on the door and actually getting the document signed? It's the notary. So not only are they the ones that are representing the whole transaction, but they're now tasked with making sure the person is the right person. So there's a lot of pressure there, but, following the right steps, I mean, they also have it in their hands to help prevent it.
So tell us ways that notaries can become even more vigilant and the tools and resources that they have to help support this very important task they have.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the first one is common sense, right? And just paying attention to your surroundings and what's going on, and following the instinct that if something isn't right, it doesn't feel right, that there may be something wrong. The other thing is just not being afraid to ask questions. So somebody presenting an ID, think about what you have on your person right now. I may not have a government issued ID, let's say, that meets the requirements that you want, but I could pull out 4 credit cards that have my name on them. I'm gonna have other things that are part of my life. So don't be afraid to say, hey, can you show me some other things that prove you're you? I'm having trouble substantiating this. Now, if you want to get into specific tools, there's an ID checking guide, especially if you're going to get presented with something that you're not familiar with. And that's why it's really important when you're making an appointment to actually ask them, like, what kind of ID are you going to give me? So you can research it ahead of time. So maybe you just want to go on the DMV's website for that state and check out what the security features are. So there's that aspect. And then the other part is the journal. Taking detailed notes, writing everything down, because that's the number one, that's your receipt of the whole transaction, because you're not taking anything with you. And then of course, making the notes, even if it means after you've left that you jot a couple things down that seemed off, or what extra questions did you ask them because you had those instincts.
And the journal isn't required in all 50 states.
It is
not. That boggles my mind. But we of course recommend that all notaries use a journal. What are some additional notes that you have found to be super helpful in cases that you've heard where notaries have been questioned?
Well, I think it just depends. I mean, any notes about the situation that they may or may not seem relevant at the time, but just things that were out of the ordinary, observations that you had. Somebody kept coming in and out of the room, like everything seemed to be in a hurry, and there was one person pacing in and out of the room. I mean, even if you took a Post-it note, wrote it down in your car, and just stuck it in the journal, it may mean nothing. But when that person comes back, because correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't come back in 2018, it was years later. So when these type of investigations happen, they're not happening the week after, they're happening years after. So it's really whatever's gonna jog your memory. Little things like whether you gave them an oath or affirmation, because sometimes that's something they'll say never happened. And even in the states where you're not allowed to document ID information, there's still things you can capture from the ID as proof that you were holding it in your hand. Anything that could seem relevant, jotting down the address that's on the ID, asking them, is this your current address? No, what is? And just taking all that information. And then when they ask you to let things go that you're not comfortable doing, not being afraid to say no. And that's sometimes the hardest part, is not wanting everything to go smoothly and actually having to stop and go, I'm not doing this.
Right, right.
It's hard. It's hard, especially when there's money on the line.
You know, on the same subject, you guys are talking about journals. It is a true fact that not all states require them, but we, of course, as you mentioned, suggest very strongly that every notary use them unless expressly prohibited, right? Here's why. This is the thing. This is coming from a American Land Title Association report on seller identity fraud that they released this year. In the cases of seller impersonation fraud that they've encountered, 43% of those cases in which they discovered fake notarization credentials were used on those documents. In 31% of the cases, they used real notary information, improperly used that on a document. So in total, that's what 74% of cases involved nefarious notary stuff. We're talking real property here. This is millions of dollars in, you know, a person or a family's number one investment, right? A journal record of that would immediately put that all into question.